So yeah, I guess I'll start then, right? So yeah, my name is Bart, in case you didn't know. I'm from the HomeComputerMuseum, and we did a huge rescue of this massive computer called the Aesthedes. It's short for aesthetic design. So that's what we. That's this presentation. We are going to talk a little bit about why we started to restore this as a home computer museum, because quite obvious this is not a computer for home. Unless you are really rich, then you could buy it. But other than that, I'm going to tell about why we started to restore it, and what we had to do to restore it, and what we found out because we were restoring it. But first, it doesn't work. Why not? Because it's off. That's why it's not working. Okay. But first, well, I'll talk a little bit about the Home Computer Museum in case you don't know. The Home Computer Museum opened on March 17, 2018. And what we do is we share the history of the computers that are intended for home use. And we also do the computers that are influenced. We also do the computers that influence the way we use computers at home. And since 2020, we also do the Dutch computer history. We currently have, not 35, we started with 35 working systems. When we started out with 200 collections at the opening. We currently have 350 systems working. So if you visit the Home Computer Museum, we actually have 350 computers where you can sit behind and they all work. Out of over 4,000 computers in collection, it's actually 4,600. And 91% is fully operational thanks to our massive team. We have 53 volunteers. And half of it is our technical people. So I always joke that VCF has Usagi Electric, Computer History Museum has Curious Mark, and we have 5 of them. So we have 5 of those great guys that are able to repair basically everything. We are open 5 days a week, and actually during holidays season we are open 7 days a week. So if you're ever in the Netherlands, just come over. As I said, since 2020, we do the Dutch computing history. And actually, it was kind of caused by the computer I will talk about. So we're not only limited to home computers. The reason why we started doing that is because the Netherlands are quite important for the history. Most people don't know that, but what I always say is there are 3 countries that created the computer history. The US, because they were the most manufacturing computers. The UK, because they were making cheap computers, and the Netherlands, because the Netherlands were for the first actually using the computers. Since 1976, we are having computers in use, and since 1979, people were having computers at home and following a TV course, and in 1980, schools were having computers, educational. So even the younger schools all had computers at school to use. So that's quite interesting. Barely anyone knows that, but yeah, it is. We also invented Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and all that kind of fun things. Famous brands, of course, Philips. Philips invented the CD, and the most screens you actually have are originally from Philips. Another big brand is Tulip Computers, who eventually even took over the brand name Commodore. Holborn, it's a very rare computer brand that only exists for 4 years, and they make these beautiful computers. The computer you see, the 5 computers you see over there with the strange ET look, that's an Holborn computer. Only 200 of these are produced, and we have 5 of them. Laser Computers is also a Dutch brand, and of course Aesthedes. So what's Aesthedes? Aesthedes is the short for aesthetic design. And it's founded by Mr. Dominique Claessens. He died in 2019. And his goal was to create a computer used by designers without any knowledge of computers. So that's the goal he wanted to do. And he started to create a computer in the early 80s. And in 1982, the first computer was released, called the Aesthedes 1. And it was a huge keyboard, so basically every function you can imagine to draw is actually on the keyboard. So it's a massive keyboard with a lot of buttons. He didn't like overlapping windows, so no windows that you can overlap like modern PCs are doing. He didn't want that. Every command has its own button. It was full color, so it supports 16.7 million colors. It uses layers. Everybody now uses layers in Photoshop, InDesign, it's all layers. This was actually the first one that we know of that uses layers. It has 64 layers where you can draw on. And yeah, it's actually very natural to use by a designer. I spoke with several designers, and they sit behind his desk like it was an original old-fashioned with pencil and paper drawing. It feels exactly like that. But I'm not a designer, so for me it's quite illogical, but sure. So Mr. Glasses invented this computer, and he invented the whole way of how to design a computer. So what made it unique? Well, B-splines. This was the first computer that we know of doing B-splines. You could easily make something, you know, blocky, and you do B-spline, and it will smooth out. Perfect. It could print, and it could save stuff, which is also, there was no other computer doing this. It's really strange. There were no computers actually doing design work that could actually print something. And they used these really big plotters for it. It used vector graphics in order to do so. So you have basically an indefinite resolution to print. You could real-time modify stuff. You could actually move a point and just real-time move that point anywhere where you want, and the drawing will completely rearrange. And I said 64 layers and 16.7 million colors. So in 1982, the first computer was released, called the Aesthedes 1. It consisted of 10 Motorola 68000 CPUs. Yes. So yeah. It uses 3 20-inch Barco monitors, which are basically Philips monitors, but high-level Philips monitors, so they also used in medical devices. They all had a resolution of 512 by 512 pixels. And they were the Thomson EF9365 display processors, so there are 3 video cards in there, and 3 video cards using this CPU, or this video chip. We have 3 12-inch data displays, and there were, the Aesthedes 1, I said it had, it could have 385 megabyte hard disks, and a 3.5-inch and a 5.25-inch floppy to store data. But the software was actually loaded from ROM. So the custom OS, which is based on Micro OS 9, was loaded from ROM. And the guy who created it, he modified it for this system specifically. He was called Bob. So therefore, the operating system was called Bob OS. It had a serial printer connection, but there was a small problem. It was RGB only. So for design purposes, it was not that great. But for $750,000, you could have one in your home. Sure. So they did an upgrade to an Aesthedes 2. In 1985, they made Aesthedes 2. So they removed a few CPUs, but replaced them with 2 Motorola 68020s and 2 Motorola 68882 coprocessors. They also removed one 5.25-inch floppy, and they put 2 3.5 floppies in. Still the same custom OS, but it did support CMYK now. That was the big upgrade. It finally supported CMYK, and it had a real keyboard. So you can actually get a keyboard out, and it will just have a full keyboard right there. So you have actually 2 keyboards then. And it does extended splicing. So I don't know what it is, but I'm not a designer. So these are only the upgrades. And what happened, because these were very expensive computers, these upgrades were just given to everybody. So it was not that you have to buy a new upgrade. Everybody just get the new upgrade. There's no true Aesthedes 1 existing today that we know of. So there's no Aesthedes 1 in the world that still has the 10 Motorola 68000 CPUs. Unfortunately, because that would be fun to have. But yeah, if you pay that kind of money, you would have, take a free upgrade, sure. So what happened is, I talked with the sales guy, and one of their competitors was the Quantel Paintbox. And many people say the Quantel Paintbox is like this. However, there are some basic differences in it. The Quantel Paintbox is kind of like Photoshop. More, it's a pixel. It's pixel. It was used for TV graphics, video editing, and that kind of stuff. The Aesthedes is an industrial and graphic design thing. It does CAD. It uses it has high resolution, and the output was print, industrial printing. These huge plotters, which were very expensive at the time. I had to look it up, but yeah, the Quantel Paintbox was, for example, for the Money for Nothing music video, Nirvana Nevermind CD cover, Silence of the Lambs poster, and it was used at NBC and the BBC. The Aesthedes, on the other hand, was used to create the Heineken logo and the Amstel logo, and the 25 guilders banknote, and the Coca-Cola logo, and all Dutch traffic signs, and so on and so on. So it's more a professional way of, it's a different way of designing. So it basically, the Quantel Paintbox is a Photoshop, After Effects, Corel Painter, while the Aesthedes is like an Illustrator, AutoCAD, SolidWorks, or Blender. There's a huge difference in both ways of designing. So how we got this computer? We have to go back to 2018. 2018, I was looking at the Dutch version of eBay, and somebody said to me, you know, this is a nice computer for you to have. I looked at it, was like, yeah, it's big. It's a really big computer, and it's not a home computer at all. But I was intrigued by it. So I sent an email. I sent her a message, and I was like, yeah, can you tell anything about this computer? I mean, it looks interesting. But so she started to tell, and it was a female. And it was the daughter of the founder. And they were moving out of the old location, and they still had 3 of these computers sitting around in a shed. The picture you see over here is actually the picture that we took when we picked it up. So there was a shed, and it was just between the horses. So it smelled like horses at least. And she said, you know, I really want you to have one, because you're in the south of the Netherlands, and my father comes from the south of the Netherlands originally, and you are an interactive computer museum, which means you will try to fix it up. All right, I'll take it. So I went there with my van, and I can tell you, it doesn't fit in my van. But yeah, with the doors open, we managed to go from Hilversum, which is a 1.5 hour, almost 2 hour drive, to Helmond. I didn't have any tailgaters at the time, which was fun. Yeah, there was a computer sticking out of the back of the van. It was kind of fun. But we managed to get it in. And yeah, that's how we got it in the first place. And we didn't know anything about it. We really didn't. The only thing you could find at the time was the 25 guilders banknote was made with it, the Amstel logo, and the Heineken logo. And there were no pictures of the machine running. There was only mentioned there's one at the University of Amsterdam. But other than that, no information whatsoever about this computer. So yeah, that will be interesting. So we put it in the warehouse. This is actually the photo from the warehouse, from us, old building. And we put it there. That's it. We didn't do anything about it. We didn't know anything about it, and we didn't dare to plug it in either. It's like, you know, we'll keep it there, and we'll see somewhere in the future. What usually happens. And but all the time, I went, you know, when we did a guided tour or something, I showed them this computer because it looks really impressive. It's hard to see, but it's really wide. It's about 2 meters. I have no idea how many foot that is, but you calculate that. Anyway, we had this computer, and every time we did a tour, guided tour, we showed this computer, showing off like this computer. We tell this whole story, which was, you know, 25 guilders, Heineken logo, Amstel logo, and we picked it up. And we compared it with Photoshop. So by the end of 2019, we got the opportunity to move to a new location, which was twice the size of the old location, which we are still today. So the first thing we had to move was this Aesthedes, because it was really in the way in the warehouse. So we moved it over. First thing we moved. And well, we thought, you know, we'll put it in the museum, because every time we go to the warehouse to show this computer, why not put it in the museum and just tell the story about it right there? So we did. So we put it in the museum. We made a whole museum around it, which was fun. And we opened on the 2nd of February 2020. Yes, that's 1.5 months before we had to close down again, but sure. So we had an interview. Mr. Nostalgia Nerd, Some of you may know him from YouTube. He visited us because apparently we were fun enough to film. So he came over and filmed the opening, basically, what he did. So we did, and of course I explained this computer to him. You know, I was there saying, you know, I have this big computer and 25 guilders and all the Amstel logo, Heineken logo, that shebang. And I said to him, you can compare it with Photoshop. Well, the video went live a few weeks later, and then I found out if you say something on the internet that's not true, people will tell you. Really, they do. So somebody responded on it. And he mentioned, you know, if you compare it with Photoshop, that's completely wrong. Photoshop is like a toddler with crayons. That's the level of Photoshop. If you do InDesign, that's an adult with crayons. And this is the professional. Right. So he asked me, do you want a story? I used to have one. Yes. Sure, give me the story. So he sent me a story. And he sent me a story about how he, as a small design studio in the UK, got this computer. It was an old-fashioned design studio at first with, you know, rulers and paper and pens and everything else. And they wanted to have, you know, one of his partner in business. He was into IT and was like, yeah, maybe we should look at computers. So they looked at the Macintosh at the time, the 128K Macintosh, and yeah, that was not serious. That was a toy. How can you design with a computer? That's impossible, especially if you look at the Macintosh. So yeah. They didn't do anything with it. The Macintosh crashed as well on the demo, so that was great. And then a few weeks later, they saw a magazine. In a magazine, they found this Aesthedes over there. And it was like, maybe we should have a laugh again and look at this computer. So they did. And they went to this, to the sales guy, and they were started talking. And that's the basic of the story. And he sent me the story, and he sent about 2 or 3 pages a day of the story, completely written down. It ended up being 40 pages. And it was an awesome story. It was movie-worthy, literally. I actually called Netflix to ask about, you know, can I make this into a movie? Apparently that's pricey, so we didn't do that. So I'll give a small story about this. I'll do a small excerpt of this story which he sent me, which is really great. I hope this works, by the way. Yeah, I will try to read it. So, pardon my English. I'm Dutch, so. It's written by a guy named Robert. And Robert is one of the founders of this design. Robert was also the guy who mentioned the whole after the video. And he visited an office in Liverpool in the UK, and he saw the Aesthedes for the first time. He just had a meeting with Sebastian, which was the sales guy. Sebastian told him everything about Aesthedes and what it can do, but no price was named, nor was the computer machine. And then he was, at some point, he was like, yeah, maybe we should watch the computer. And Sebastian actually led them to this special place. And now I'm going to read. So this is from Robert. Robert wrote this. Sebastian led the way into a pitch-black room, save for overhead lighting illuminating 3 leather chairs. Melvin and I took our seats, by this time slightly concerned as to what on earth this would be about. The room being silent aside from a low hum. Sebastian disappeared, and then 4 overhead spotlights came on. And there before us was Aesthedes, in all her. And yes, Claessens always referred to the system as she in her majesty. Fully powered, flight monitors. We call them green screens. Together with the 3 large monitors on. The central monitor showing a vector-layered image of a female face with long brown hair. Right-hand monitor showing a 3-dimensional image slowly rotating. The left-hand monitor showing a line art. Flight monitors were showing data connected to the above image and also system status vectors. Although at the time we had no idea what the data meant. Sebastian reappeared as though by magic, announcing, "Welcome to the world of advanced electronic design. The future, gentlemen." You may wonder how I recall all these words and events all these years later, Bart. Well, I shall tell you now, the day changed our lives utterly. One remembers a day like that. This is the way he sent me the story. And this is just a small excerpt, 40 pages of this kind of text. So it reads like a book. It was beautiful. So we're getting this story. And we're talking about, we are in 2020. We had to close down because of the pandemic. And we were sitting there because we are a repair shop, so we also do computer repairs. Therefore, we were still open. But we weren't open as a museum, but we had all these guys and people hanging around because, you know, we have a repair shop, so sure, they come over to the museum. So we were there having this story slowly coming in. And then I got a phone call from an English lady. Her name is Donna Lewis. And Donna Lewis said, I watched the video of Nostalgia Nerd. I said, okay. And you have an Aesthedes, right? I said, yeah, I have an Aesthedes. She said, do you know the Wikipedia page of that computer? I said, yeah, I know the Wikipedia page. She said, yeah, there's a female on there with the computer. I said, yeah, I know. That's me. And this is the picture she sent me. That's on the Wikipedia as well. The lady you see there, that's Donna Lewis. And she said to me, you know, I had this computer and it was my baby. Every day I went to this other design studio in the UK. And I went there and I just sat behind the computer. And it was a pleasure to work with. It was my baby. I could do anything with it. And she worked there for several years. And then in the early 2000s, the computer was thrown away and they went to the Macintosh systems. She worked there for 2 more days. And she said, what a soulless machines they are. She quit her job and never designed again. So as she said, I see that you have one and you're saying you're getting it working. If you get it working, please call me so I can come over to the Netherlands, be a volunteer for you for 2 weeks. I'll pay for everything, I don't care. Because for the last time in my life, I want to sit behind this computer and teach you how it works. So, sure. We got these 2 stories. I mean, what can we do? We have to fix it now, right? So we started to fix it. So the first thing, crack the thing open. So this is basically in 2020, and this is the base computer, the only monitor that worked, and the keyboard, and it's all split. And we developed the 14 easy step program for this computer. So first thing, we'll fix the monitors because that's relatively easy. Next thing, we do the power supplies. Next thing, check for shorts. Disconnect all the disks and image them. Plug in and find all the smoke that comes out. Fix the smoking things. Image the disk and connect it. Try to boot. Figure out how to connect everything. Find out that we connected it completely wrong. Reconnect all the screens properly this time. Remove the hard disk, replace by SCSI to SD card, because that's safer. Learn how to operate. And teach others how to operate. See, 14 easy steps. We are here. So, well, the monitors, of course, as I said, there are 6 monitors in this computer, or with this computer, and only 1 was working, barely. But at least we have something, right? We could do something. We went to the power supplies, and there are 3 power supplies in there. And there are 2 12-volt power supplies and 1 5-volt power supply. Except the 5-volt power supply is 40 amps. That's a challenge. And of course, the 5-volt was broken. And the 1 12-volt was broken. So we had 1 power supply that was working, apparently. But yeah, we wanted to test the thing. So what we did is we found this ATX power supply, which can provide 5-volt and 12-volt. And this was 32 amps on the 5-volt line. That was a 1,000-watt power supply. So we connected it up to all the power places. And in order to see what was going to happen. And it was a kind of fun moment because we had an ATX injector attached to it, which beeped every second. So you can imagine you have this computer completely wide open, all cables going out all the places, slowly coming to alive, and you hear this beep, beep, beep. It was on life support at that point. And you know what happens when you connect something and you have no clue what it is going to do? You get poofs. This is one of the boards. We have to eventually replace about 30 of those. So they went poof. But slowly, we have this tantalum capacitors. We hate them with a vengeance, but yeah, they make a good smoke. And so we had to remove all the boards, and there are quite some boards in there, so we had no idea. Again, we had no schematics, we had no photos, nothing. We didn't know anything about this computer, apart from it's big and heavy. So we replaced all the capacitors and the tantalum capacitors, and we checked for shorts, and there was no short anymore. We plugged it in. Sure. Basically, we were somewhere here. We, of course, disconnected all the disks. So we had basically already fixed the first 6 steps of the 14 easy step, which was quite nice. So then we had to do something and try image to disk and connect the hard disk. Well, first of all, this is how far we were at the time. You have one monitor that works, and you see it shows a lot. This is without hard disks. This is what the output is. We have to do it from there. So we grabbed the hard disk. There are 2 disks inside. One was utterly broken. There was no way we could connect it. At least we tried to power it on, but it sounded like someone was grinding on it, so that's usually not a good sign. We also tried to image it. We actually sent it over to a data recovery center, and we got it back a few days later with a question mark on it. So like, great, that helps. So yeah, we had one broken disk. So the question was, how was the install? We didn't have disks, so how did they install this thing? It should be something, right? So we went to social media. We just asked around. You know, anybody has some information about this? And lo and behold, we found the product owner. Via LinkedIn, somebody mentioned him, and I contacted him, and he was the product owner of the Aesthedes back in the day. He still worked at the company that eventually took over Aesthedes and so on and so on. And one of his co-workers was the R&D guy of the Aesthedes. So we have some interesting people now. And they told me the Aesthedes was installed by copying hard disks. Great. Now what? So we went on a quest. The quest. This is actually the photo of the hard disk. So we went on a quest. And we had to figure out somebody else who has an Aesthedes and is willing to give it to us. So we found 2 places where they apparently had a Aesthedes. One is at the University of Amsterdam. The other one was at the Sound and Vision Institute. So we went to the University of Amsterdam. They also call themselves a computer museum, but I had to go to the Ministry of Culture in order to get to the museum, because they didn't trust us. Finally, we got there, and we found out it's an Aesthedes 1, we thought. But it was all in the back, so we couldn't see anything behind the computer, which meant this is booting from a ROM. This is not booting from a hard disk, so it's useless for us. However, Sound and Vision, we had to call, eventually we called the daughter of the owner, of the creator of this computer, because we saw these 2 other computers in where we picked it up. So we asked them, where did the other go? And she said, one went to the Sound and Vision. And these are good friends of us. So I called them up. It's like, you have an Aesthedes, right? Yep, we have. Can I have your hard disk? Sure. So we drove over there. We went to one of their basements, which is like -3 or so. And we grabbed their hard disk. We just took it home, and then, okay, now we have hard disk. Great. Why is my next dia is empty? I don't know why. So we have the hard disk. So the hard disk is around 304 megabytes, which we got, a big hard disk, which is fine. We can image that, right? 304, sure. SCSI interface, we can do that. That's easy. 265 byte sectors, all right. Linux doesn't do this. This is 512 bytes minimum. Now what? Thankfully, we know we have Google, and we know how that works. So SGUtils 3, which has a SGDD inside, that directly talks to the SCSI controller. So we could image the hard disk, and we managed to image the entire hard disk. And so we suddenly have this system that works, and we have we back up the hard disk so we could try this hard disk out. So we connected everything up, and we started to boot. Which means we are now at step 9. Figure out how to connect 6 screens. There are 6 screens in this computer with 6 video cards. The main monitor, the middle monitor, has a RGB input and a sync input. And what we've heard, we didn't know, is that the sync input of that monitor is based on the syncs of 3 video cards. And they are interconnected somehow, because the outer 2 screens don't have sync on green. So there we were, 3 video cards, we have to interconnect somehow to get a sync out of that. All right, and then we found out, we had fixed, I will tell you about, I don't know, yeah, I still have time. As I said, we have the 3 Barco monitors, and only one of them was barely working. And yeah, of course, there were no schematics of these monitors, obvious. And I know for sure because I did ask Barco for something else, but it was a big projector which we had in 2018 as well. And I actually mailed Barco saying, listen, I have this projector, it's broken, do you have schematics, can you help us out? And after a few days, I got a message back from Barco, from Belgium. They said, it's out of warranty. I was like, oh no, really? That was not my question. My question was, can you help us? And they never got an answer. So I was Barco was not helpful at all. So what we had to do is basically, we had to find out what was wrong with this monitor by checking all the lines and just really into the hardware. So eventually we managed to make a schematic out of this monitor, and we found out that there were a few parts broken. The flyback, at least one of the flybacks, 2 of the flybacks were broken. So then we had to find the flyback for this monitor. So we went on eBay, and we found 3 of them. Since then, we haven't found any more. So I think we bought the last 3 flybacks for this monitor. So we repaired it. So the big monitors were now working. They were still heavily out of sync, but okay. We also found out that these smaller monitors, the 11-inch or 12-inch monitors, all are dead. There was nothing we could do with them. They were dead as a doornail. And there were no schematics of that either, so we have to figure out that as well. Basically, we ended up with many problems because we have this. We don't know how to connect it. We have broken monitors. How on earth can we get this thing running? And we have this massive sync problem. But thankfully, we found out that the 3 data monitors, the smaller monitors, are quite easy because they use simple composite. So what we did is just put composite monitors in it. And there we have them, 3 small monitors next to each other. There they are. And this is the first time we had the Aesthedes fully booted. And we thank for the people who actually came to the HomeComputerMuseum, the product owner. They helped us figuring out what kind of places we have to put the screens, because they said this is the data screen. You have the RGB on the left side. There's RGB monitor, there's the data screen at least. Middle is the command monitor, and right side is the project monitor. And so we could figure it out, how everything worked and how everything should be connected. So we reconnected everything, and now it has something. However, the middle screen, you don't see that on a picture because it's a picture, but the middle screen is actually completely out of sync in this one. I was really clever making this into a photo, because now you don't see it, but it's really out of sync. It was going all kinds of ways, but yeah, that, at least we have something of an image. And it was the first time. You do see the small pen over there. And the small pen didn't work at all. The small pen, we needed to have a cursor, which was a small round thingy. And of course, that one was nowhere to be found. Actually, Sound Division didn't have one. So thankfully, the R&D guy, who also came to us, who was actually very surprised that we managed to boot this entire computer in the first place, he had to look through his attic, and he found one box with this small cursor. Looking at the time, yeah, sure. Because that's the whole story as well. It's the problems situation still. So the cursor, we finally got the cursor. And we like, now we can finally start designing, because there was, and we connected the cursor, and it didn't work. The cursor didn't respond to anything. We checked the cursor itself, which worked. So you have this this white area. This is like a ring below it, and that ring makes sure you can define where your cursor is, which is induction kind of thing. And so no matter what we did, it didn't work. The computer wasn't registering anything we did over there. And of course, we had to remove there's also a different device. I forgot the brand name, but it's an American brand name, who made these things, these cursor things. So I mailed them, and they said, you know, I have no clue, because we took over this company and we throw everything out. So that was not helpful. And then there's this fun story that we had, and this happened in 2024, so it's really that not long ago. We had people coming over to the HomeComputerMuseum, and just guests. And there was a guy he came from Finland, actually, Denmark. He came from Denmark. And he went there in 2023, he came to a visit to the museum, and he liked it that much that he came back in 2024 from Finland. But this time he stayed for 2 days, he said. And he took a few friends. So the first day they enjoyed the museum, all fun, great. And by the end of the day they asked me if I was just away, and they asked through my coworker if they could speak with me. And I said, sure. So the next day I spoke with them. And they were like, yeah, you have this crazy computers over here. You're like, we have a Silicon Graphic Indigo 2, R10000, which is a massive video card in there. And you have nothing on there to show it. Can we please install some data on there? Can we install some software? Yeah, sure, go ahead. And he said, yeah, I really want to see his friend said, yeah, I want to see the Amiga 3000 Unix booting, because I think it's really slow. It is really slow. But yeah, sure, they wanted to play around. And they also want to play around with our next computers, which are also by default off, because they draw a lot of power. So they were playing around with that. Installing software, helping us out, basically. That's what we don't know much about next computers and they did. So you go ahead, play with it, and we have something to show for. And while I was talking with them, of course, I showed the Aesthedes, and we were, showing around and telling them we still have this one problem, that the mouse doesn't work, or the cursor doesn't work. And he said, you know what? My friend, which I took, works at a company supporting these things. Can he have a look? Yes. So they took it out, and they started. They went into our technical repair, and I just said he spent 2 days, right? He wanted to spend 2 days. It ended up with 4 days, because the guy actually was repairing it. And by the end of that second day, the device was working. He managed to fix it. There was some chips were broken. And he managed to fix it and replace them, and now everything fine. So, great, we can design now. Nope, still not. I do have to say, we did fix the monitors eventually, the top monitors as well, using 2 oscilloscopes. I don't have pictures of that. But we had to do an oscilloscope and measure actually all the data coming out. And in that way, we had to figure out what the sync signals were and eventually trim it down that all the sync signals were correct and matching. So you can imagine that we have 3 oscilloscopes behind this computer just to measure all the cards. It was crazy. But eventually we got it fixed. So the sync was working. We managed to fix the small monitors because the R&D guy still had manuals and schematics of the small monitors as well. So we fixed everything. And the only thing that still remained was the cursor. And then something happened. I just mentioned we had the University of Amsterdam had one. So they called me up and said, yeah, we want to get rid of it now. Do you want it? Yes. So they, which is a story by itself as well. I have plenty of time now. Yeah, I'm storytelling. So you can imagine this University of Amsterdam, they have this computer museum. So everything has to be official. I picked this computer up in my van. I really didn't care. There was also this huge what you have to do in order to plug it in. There was a whole description what you have to do, which we eventually find out, and we just plugged it in like, yeah, let's see if it works. But the University of Amsterdam, you know, they have this official museum, so they have this ridiculous. We have to do, are we insured? What's the lighting condition? How are we securing? All these crazy rules. And they had to find this special transport company because it was considered as an art piece. So it cost a ridiculous amount of money for a special company to transport an Aesthedes from Amsterdam to Helmond. And like, yeah, I can pick it up with a van, but no, it wasn't possible. So they picked it up, they all padded on the sides, and they had 2 people lifting the thing. I usually lift the thing by itself, and there you go. But it was all padded, and there was all this wood around it. And we packed everything out, and we paid for the transport and did all the things. And then I found out the keyboard is connected to the computer using a few cables. They cut the cables. Yes, so, which was fixable, but I was like, yeah, why? You do this crazy amount of work and you just go there and, yeah, we'll cut the cables, fine. All right. So we did basically the same with that computer as we did with the first computer, with the first Aesthedes. So we did, fix the hard disks. Actually, the monitors were working, so that was nice. The power supplies were working. That was nice. So we have to, we managed to get the thing working. We back up the hard disk. Now we know, and we got the thing relatively fast in working order. And it had a cursor, and we booted it up, and everything was working on that system. I could even draw. It's like, wait, why is this one working and ours isn't? And then one of my coworkers figured out there were dip switches on this device. Maybe. So we checked out the dip switches, and lo and behold, we copied the dip switches from the Aesthedes we received. And we copied those dip switches to our Aesthedes, and from that moment on, suddenly we had 2 Aesthedes computers working. So that's in short story. And maybe you ask what they did with this computer. So we found out, thanks to all the research we did and all the people we spoke to, these are just a few brands that used an Aesthedes computer back in the day. So Ford in Europe, it's not Ford America, but Ford in Europe had one. We know Volvo had one. Heineken logo, yeah, of course. The Coca-Cola company also used an Aesthedes. Marlboro used an Aesthedes. Volkswagen used an Aesthedes. And I can go on and on. It's been used so much. And this computer created the whole CAD industry by itself. And we found out that Adobe and Autodesk both were influenced by the keyboard of this computer. And that's how they made their menus. It's not the different way around. This computer was really the source of things like Photoshop and a source of InDesign and so Autodesk, AutoCAD. It's been crazy. Even Russian stock papers were made on this. It goes from the HEMA was made. Yeah, you know it. Only Dutch people understand HEMA. It's been incredible what this thing did. All traffic signs you can find in the Netherlands right now are made with an Aesthedes. And the Aesthedes was the very first Flopotron. I found out. It was actually used to connect to a big plotter, and they did a concert with that, with a violin. So the Aesthedes is the very first Flopotron, using one printer. It's been a crazy computer. And about 200 to 250 are made, and currently there are 5 in the entire world remaining, that we know of at least. So we have 40% of the remaining stock currently in the museum. And these are the 2 we have. The left one is the one from Amsterdam, which is originally an Aesthedes 1, but they upgraded it to an Aesthedes 2, as mentioned before. So yeah, eventually we could have had the hard disk of this one as well, but yeah, we now have 2 hard disks, so that's fine. And the left one is the one we got in 2018. And that was my presentation. Thank you. Any questions? Yes? Oh, I have a mic. And not working. Oh,
Do you know much about the architecture of the original machine? Because I'm struggling to understand how they were using 1068,000s. I've worked on some pretty complicated workstations, and I'm pretty used to like multiprocessor, where they might have one for I/O or something else to kind of shove some work off the main CPU for more efficient. But 10? Like what were they using them for?
Yeah, we don't know. What's happening right now is we send the hard disk images. We have sent them over to a German guy who actually helped us undelete files. So that's how we found out that where the ours is used for. We also had a password problem. So he discovered the password inside one of the files. And they are now building an emulator for it. So yes, very soon there will be a real Aesthedes emulator for reasons. Yeah, we are providing them ROMs now and making sure. So they are really looking into the software itself and why it is using that amount of CPU power, because it is ridiculous. And yeah, we'll probably try to find somebody who's going to port Doom to it, because yeah, why not? It has to run Doom, right? So yeah, we don't know. We really don't know. I know it's an OS 9 based system, and there's a lot of customization software. So maybe that software itself is using CPU, much CPUs. I don't know. We have to figure it out. But we're working on it. Any more questions?
Did the woman that you mentioned come over and help you learn how to use it yet?
No, not yet. No, not yet. I actually sent her an email. I haven't replied yet. She has some health issues that I know of. That somebody told me that she has some health issues, so I'm not sure when she is coming over. She knows that it's working, so that's something, and we hope that she will be able to come at some point. We did have already the sales, one of the sales managers from the UK came over and actually draw some image on it, and was the first time in 40 years that he was using a computer again, so that was nice. But we still don't have no clue what is working. That's why my first diagram was, we still don't have a clue how it works. But we can draw some circles and some squares, and we do some fun things with it.
Have you been able to find more documentation over time?
Actually, yes. We have, because we are so open on the internet, we do a lot of things on social media. I post every single day on social media, and we use a lot of outputs on that. We have, again, we are the only museum in the world that has an OnlyFans. So yeah, and for followers. Thank you very much. So yeah, we put everything on social media, and thanks to that, a lot of people found out that we have an Aesthedes in somewhat working state, and they suddenly decide, okay, we have this documentation or this box on the top. So right now we have schematics of the video cards, we have schematics of the power supplies, of the monitors, we have schematics. We did have actually some install software. We have some source codes as well. We have the training manuals, we have the service manuals, we have even a whole report on when one of the repair guys went to the US and did some repairs in the US for the several computers. So we have all written down what they did. So we have a whole bunch of schematics. Everything is already scanned, documented, and uploaded to archive.org. So yes, we share everything what we have. So we try to find even more as soon as we can. We find more. That's how we get all the stories. As said, from the beginning in 2018, we only knew Amstel logo, Heineken logo, 25 guilders, and right now we know everything what is made with it, and it's ridiculous how much is made with it. Just because of people coming to us and telling these stories, because I used to have one, and we used to have one in this office, and I used this and I made this with it, and that's great. That's what we do.
Definitely put the stories. Definitely put the stories up.
Yeah, we will. We are going to make a big documentary about it as well, and how the thing works, but we first need to figure out how it works. We can turn it on and we can draw circles, but that's not the way it should be, right?
Coming. There you go.
So on the topic of how the computer works, I see like you mentioned how there's like multiple views, multiple monitors. So do you have like a better idea of what those specific displays and views are for, and
Yes.
how you would use them?
Yes. I don't have a better picture with me, I think. The screens, the left screen is, the left color screen, top screen, is a zoom screen. You can zoom in on stuff. The right screen is the current level you're working on. There's all monochrome, they're monochrome signal. It's color screens, but monochrome signal, so there's only black and white. And the middle screen is 64 layers combined. So it's just 64 layers combined on top of each other. So the output is really in the middle. That's how it should look. And the right is the most used monitor, because that's the monitor you're designing on. And the bottom ones, the left monitor is the RGB code. So you have all the layers over there. And you see the RGB values or the CMYK values. The middle screen is the command screen, the small screen. If you have an input like I want to draw something, you have an input over there from I like to have 4 corners or 6 corners or 8 corners. I can do that. And the right screen is the project screen. So if you're in a project, you can also do a file listing over there, and you can actually go into a terminal, which is the OS9 based, and you are in a terminal then. I have no idea how to get out, but sure. That's the project screen. So that's basically the data screen. So that's how they were used.
Are like the designs stored on there? Like, are they readable by other devices or other formats?
The designs we actually managed to read, because we found we could now read the hard disk. We can read the files. We can convert the files to a modern format, so we can actually read them now in modern software as well. And the files were stored on the hard disk. You can also export them on a floppy if you want to. And print them, but I don't have the big printers, so.
Thank you.
That's it.
All right, give it up for Bart van den Akker.
Oh, thank you. And we're still in room B, the Home Computer Museum, and we have stroopwafels and licorice, so for free.